Getting ourselves deep into the consumer crossover products as of late. Don't worry, you'll see some weird on the channel quite soon. In the meantime, enjoy this video on the second generation Jeep Compass, specifically this 2019 Jeep Compass Latitude, chassis code MP552. The compact crossover is possibly one of the hottest selling segments in the car market today, and possibly one of the most important. This is a segment that's become so ubiquitous, it's come at the cost of many cheap compact cars. Often these small crossovers sit on the same chassis as their car counterparts, but offer a slightly higher seating position in the promise of being, quote, safer over a traditional car, as well as more practical. But at a lot of times, the small car is just as safe and often better packaged in terms of cargo and people space. The only other compact crossover that I've featured on the show, the 2020 Nissan Rogue Sport S from episode 69, nice, was cramped in all the wrong places and had driving dynamics that were not good. Going back even further, I reviewed a 2014 Nissan Juke S Midnight Edition early in this channel's history, but that was a crossover that was even more compromised as it was trying to be a weird sporty looking things that the kids would like, but would be often driven by their parents. But today I finally get to drive another compact crossover, and one that's still on sale today. It may be a tad long in the tooth in terms of its competition, but I can show you that it's a much better offer in almost every way compared to the Rogue Sport. This is a Jeep Compass, Jeep's second smallest offering, and one that's often maligned for not being a real Jeep, and one that's seen as a girl car. I don't like the term girl car. A car is a car, no matter who drives it. This happens to be not only one of Jeep's cheapest offerings, but one of the cheapest compact crossovers on the market. So naturally, younger women tend to gravitate towards the Compass and its renegade little brother, as they're often the easiest ways to get into the ever-hot Jeep brand. That's not a bad thing. Both are good at being cheap, somewhat reliable transport with a touch of capability. In fact, the two Jeep Compass owners that I know are men, from a current co-worker of mine to the owner of this Compass, Mike, who's a former co-worker of mine from our racing days. So yeah, let's look at it as an affordable Jeep, not necessarily a girl Jeep. Anyways, the Compass gets a bad rap as it was a sign of changing times. Crossovers were and are better alternatives for street use over traditional off-road focused SUVs that Jeep was known for. In fact, Jeep was looking at a sub-Wrangler model as far back as 1990, when they were developing a model to compete against the Suzuki Samurai and Sidekick and Daihatsu Rocky. However, focus was shifted towards the Grand Cherokee product, which would become one of the most important cornerstones in not only Jeep's lineup, but the SUV as a whole, as it would help shift the buying public from seeing SUVs as purely trail rigs to something you could see in every driveway. Also, the JJ, as it was known internally, was sort of an engineering oddity that took the engine and transaxle from the Dodge Omni and Plymouth Horizon and mounted them longitudinally on top of a tiny 14-inch driveshaft that wouldn't have necessarily been able to be up to the mass production snuff. But with the rise of the Toyota RAV4 and Honda CR-V, Chrysler and Jeep needed something that they could aim towards the soft-roader crowd. Well, the first generation Jeep Compass and its platform mate, the Jeep Patriot, arrived and absolutely flopped. The Mitsubishi Lancer-based Compass was honestly ungainly looking, poorly built, and was known for a rash of unreliability issues that was quite common for bankruptcy-era Jeep and Chrysler products. Jeep tried to go with this rally car look with the first Compass, and even in its day, it looked like a bloated Dodge Caliber with a Jeep grille, which what it was essentially was. Sales was so bad that it got a massive refresh in 2011 that massively reworked both the interior and exterior to that of making the Compass look like a small Grand Cherokee. While still not great, it was a massive improvement, and Compasses finally started to leave the showroom floor at a respectable rate. Even though it barely looks like the older Compasses, the 2011 refresh is still considered to be part of the first generation, as it sits on the same Lancer platform, and it carried over much of the power drivetrain. With the ship seemingly righted and sales rising, The Compass would get a second generation in 2017 and would share nothing from the previous ones, save for being in the same segment and sharing similar styling. While the first gen was a Daimler Chrysler design, Mitsubishi based disaster, the second gen would be a Fiat Slur developed product, sitting on a stretch version of Fiat's small wide platform known as Small Wide 4x4 LWB. This is a stretched version of the small wide 4x4 platform that sits under the Renegade in the Fiat 500X. The LWB platform also sits under the new Commander, a model that's only available in Latin markets, and the upcoming Dodge Hornet and Alfa Romeo Toenail. The sole available engine is the 2.4-liter Tiger Shark single overhead cam i4 that produces 184 horsepower and 179 foot-pounds of torque. It's actually a second-generation version of Chrysler's old World 4-cylinders from the mid to late aughts, but it now features Fiat's multi-air variable valve timing. It is hooked up not to a CVT, but a choice of 3 different transmissions: a 6-speed manual, a 6-speed FPT, dual-clutch auto and front-wheel drive models, or the 9-speed ZF948TE auto standard and 4-wheel drive models. You can get it in either front-wheel drive or full-wheel drive, and sitting on the top of the heap is the Trailhawk model that gives it a slight lift, knobby tires, more plastic cladding, and red tow hooks. Below the Trailhawk, you have 3 trim levels to choose from: the base Sport, mid-level Latitude or Longitude if you're in Europe, and the top-level Limited. Styling is actually quite handsome. This is a good-looking little crossover. It borrows styling cues from the larger Cherokee and Grand Cherokees, but it also carves out its own little legs to stand on with its floating roof that allows for a clean break for the available two-tone roof on some models. Even upon its refresh, the first-gen Compass was still kinda ungainly. This, meanwhile, is a good-looking little crossover. Inside, it's okay. This is obviously one of the cheapest in the segment, and it comes with hard plastics and a screen that's meh at best. It's not terrible, it's okay, and that's fine. This is a cheap commuter, and I've been in a lot worse at the rental counter. But it's surprisingly roomy in here. Like, I'm 6'3" tall and fat. I fit fairly comfortable in the back seat of this, which I cannot with the Rogue Sport. And the back seats are able to fold flat without moving the front seats from their normal driving positions. Most small cars and crossovers, you have to do a little shuffle between the front and rear seats to get the rears to fold flat. But not here. Now, obviously, if you put the front seats all the way back and down, you would have some issues, but yeah, this is a really well-packaged small crossover. Cargo space is plenty, and you get additional storage under the removable cargo floor. And like the smaller Renegade, you get Jeep's patented Easter eggs everywhere. There's the lizard under the wiper blade, the flat fender Jeep grille, and various interior panels like on the rear hatch and in the headlights, as well as a little flat fender crawling up the windshield. In the rear hatch window has a little Loch Ness monster hanging out at the bottom, which apparently is a reference to the Compass's Trailhawk's ability to ford water 19 inches deep. Also, a couple I didn't catch in the search was the fact that the vents in the cargo area are supposed to represent the American flag, and the dead pedal having the Morse code for sand, snow, rivers, and rocks. While it is a very clever way to make sure you get OEM parts, it's these little details that drive people to love their Jeeps. And the Easter eggs have begun to move on to other Chrysler products, like with newer Rams. How does the 2019 Jeep Compass Latitude drive? Pleasantly surprising. It's not quick by any stretch of the means, and the 2.4-liter Tiger Shark 4 is thirsty at 25 city and 22 highway, but it handles well. Like, it's no sports car, but it stays planted in the corners quite well. The steering is tight and the 6-speed auto shifts well. Unlike the Rogue Sport, which is just bleh on all levels, this is actually kind of enjoyable to put mileage on, especially on back roads. It's not bad, and I actually kind of enjoy it as a cheap transport. I didn't really notice it being slow as other reviewers often call it, as I spent most of my days in mail vehicles, but this feels fine, just fine. This particular 2019 Compass belongs to an old friend of the show, Mike from Salisbury, North Carolina. Mike and I worked together on the race team years ago, and he was an early supporter of the show, allowing me to film a couple of his cars at the time, the Nissan Versa Note from episode 6, oh man, that's a cringy episode, and the Acura RSX from episode 9. Yeah, those early episodes are really rough for me to sit through, as I was obviously trying to be weird and funny like regular car reviews, and I was still settling into finding my own voice as a creator. Yeah, we all have to start somewhere, and usually when we start as creators, we take from who we're inspired by. For me, it was RCR and Top Gear, so I was trying to be bombastic and weird, and even though I have a weird sense of humor, it just didn't feel natural as I was being a try hard about it, and just I don't like it. Eventually, I do want to redo the first 15 episodes. So, yeah. Anyways, off that tangent. Mike recently got a new job with much better pay, and traded himself with a solid, reliable daily in this Compass. He's already given it some of his personal touch with him installing the European rear reflectors, blacking out the grille, and installing carbon inserts in the grille. He loves his new Jeep, and he much prefers it over his old Versa. The second generation Jeep Compass is a solid entry into the compact crossover segment. It's a little old in the tooth compared to the redesigned entries such as the CR-V, RAV4, and even new entries such as the Corolla Cross and Bronco Sport. But it's a fine, cheap transport with a hint of capability. 2023 even got a refresh with a Tiger Shark finally got replaced with Fiat's 2-liter GME Turbo 4, and all transmissions getting replaced with the ZF's 8F30 8-speed auto. You also can only get it in standard 4-wheel drive like a Subaru, which I actually think works well with Jeep being a quote-unquote off-road brand as a whole. While there might be better and newer options, the Compass is a solid entry that doesn't exactly deserve some of the flack it gets. It has seemingly decent reliability, and every issue I've found are small build quality issues like with windshield wipers flying off. But for their price, they are decent cheap transportation. 2019 Jeep Compass Latitude. Give it a shot. Don't let that first gen Compass scare you off. The second gen one is actually decent. Have a good day, everyone. Thank you once again for watching another episode of Wookie Drives. As mentioned before, this week's episode comes courtesy of Mike of Salisbury, North Carolina. If you have a car or truck you'd like to see on the show and happen to be in the Charlotte or Mooresville, North Carolina area, email me your submission of your car at wookiedrives@gmail.com. That is wookiedrives@gmail.com. That's right, submit your car to wookiedrives@gmail.com. Don't forget to give the video a like, drop a comment with some feedback. Any feedback in the comments really helps these small channels grow, as it really kind of helps boost the video in the algorithm. Share with all your Jeep Compass friends. And finally, don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell for notifications for more Wookie Drives like these. Thank you so much for watching, and have a good day.